Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of Committee of the Whole, 16-18, held today, Monday, July 23rd at 6:30 p.m. Joel, I would ask you to lead us in O Canada one more time, sir.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. Car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you very much, Joel. Appreciate it once again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Madam Clerk, are there any addendum items tonight?
No, there are not.
I entertain a motion to confirm our agenda. Moved by Councillor Demeray, seconded by Councillor Kenny. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Are there any disclosures of interest this evening? There being none indicated, please record that, Madam Clerk. I entertain a motion to adopt the regular meeting of Committee of the Whole 15-18 held on July 9th, 2018. Moved by Councillor Bodner, seconded by Councillor Elliott. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Move on to determination of items requiring separate discussion. Councillor Bodner and Councillor Danch.
Item 2, Mr. Mayor.
Item 2. Mr. Danch?
Item 1.
Any further items? There being none, call for approval of those items not requiring separate discussion. Moved by Councillor Demeray, seconded by Councillor Kenny. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Are there any presentations this evening?
No, there are not.
Also, a call for approval of items not requiring separate discussion. Moved by Councillor Danch?
We've done that.
Okay. Sorry about that. Delegations are next. I would call on Cynthia Skinner, representing the Friends of the Lighthouse, to come forward. And that there are 10 minutes for the delegation, Cynthia.
Okay. Thank you. Worshipful Mayor Maloney, Council, media, and fellow citizens. It is good to return to the Council chambers and request that the City recognize International Lighthouse Day here in Port Colborne on the occasion of the 40th anniversary of Canal Day festivities. Lighthouse Day is recognized internationally on the 7th of August. As tourist interest continues to grow in lighthouses, more cities home to these lighthouses are coming on board to recognize the importance that the lighthouses played in their history, culture, and economy. Once again, our small group will man our stations for 4 days of nonstop tours, and I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the goodwill shown us by making the pavilion at the marina available as our land base of operations. Additionally, we benefit from the Canal Days co-op advertising. On behalf of our Lighthouse group efforts, I've been an exhibitor at Dunville Days for a few years. There, the visitors express much interest in our lighthouses. Some relate stories of having known former keepers, others stories of having visited it back in the day. This summer, I also attended a Morgan Point event. Here, too, it was obvious that they feel a connection to our lighthouses and much interested in coming to our tours. And Cheryl Fortin also does marketing for our group. She's often found on Market Day in front of this guild hall with her flyers and souvenirs. We are not alone in our struggle to obtain more and better access to our lighthouses. Hamilton now has a plan to have their light open to visitors a bit down the road. That's good news for us, as we will benefit from the ripple effect of every visitable lighthouse in the area. And in future, perhaps we can develop a plot and a plan to participate in International Ham Radio Weekend that is later in August. On that weekend, ham radio groups worldwide broadcast from lighthouses, not necessarily from up in them, but from the adjacent space. Currently, the nearest participant is Dunkirk, New York, just across the lake. And Niagara does have a vibrant ham radio group. The more access we have to our lighthouses all summer, the more steady flow of tourists, leaving happy and leaving more money in our merchants' coffers. And at last, thank you for raising our lighthouse flag over City Hall for this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Could you just hold for a minute in case there are questions from council? Are there questions from council? Councillor Bodner.
Maybe not so much of a question and a vote of thanks to Cynthia and her group for really promoting the lighthouse. And I think, and I know the CAO and the mayor have met with the COA, but I think we have to, as a city, make a more concerted effort to get more ownership of this lighthouse. It's a tourism attraction. Cynthia is not only a volunteer, she's a tourism professional, an ex-nurse, and an advocate for the disabled.
Aggressive.
If you've ever, yes, nicely aggressive though, Cynthia, nicely. But anyways, your group's small in numbers, but you bring a lot to the city. But I really would urge what's this council's got left and whatever the new council is to see where we can go with this. I mean, the opportunity is right there. We just have to shake the Seaway a little harder, I think, and get them to allow us more access, more year-round access to it. So that's my spiel. Thanks for whatever you do for this. It's great. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad to do it.
Any other questions of Mrs. Skinner? There be none. Just a comment to Mr. Bodner that we have been working with the Seaway and we have a draft lease that we're negotiating back and forth, so we anticipate to be signing a lease of that property on terms more favorable to the city and to the friends of the lighthouse. And we expect that will be finalized before the term of this council's out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Skinner. Next, we have Diana M. Carl, please come forward, Mrs. Carl. Again, we have roughly 10 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor Maloney, ladies and gentlemen of the council. My name is Diana Carl. I'm here this evening to request an exception to bylaw 1117/64/81, section 3.22, in order to put a curb and cut and driveway at our property at 1056 Steele Street. I did originally check with the engineering department and was told that the regulation for 2 driveways on a residential property would be 30 meters. We are 28 meters, so I'm 6.47 feet short of the requirement. I understand everybody has received the package that I prepared. Just a little backstory on this. We bought the house, as I said, in November of 2016. My son and I decided that we would share a home. We were shopping the region, we couldn't find anything. So one of the things we really needed was a large garage and driveway for his work vehicle. We looked at lots of houses, we weren't finding what we needed, and we actually stumbled accidentally on 1056 one Saturday when we came to view a different property here in Port Colborne. I chose to drive down Steele Street. There was a sign, and I called the realtor. The evening we came to view the house, the realtor had the key to the door of the room that used to be the old garage, which is the ground level room. So we entered and exited the house that evening on the ground level. In the excitement of thinking we may have found a place, I didn't think of the impact of what the stairs and all the walking would have on me. So everything moved quickly and we were homeowners. Unfortunately, as I've outlined in my presentation package, living here has presented me with the difficulties I'm experiencing physically. And the 2 birthdays I've had since we moved in haven't helped a lot either. So a curb cut rather, in a driveway to the property would be a blessing to me, would make my life a lot easier, and more important, it would protect me from the potential of a debilitating slip and fall. In my estimation, 2 meters, 6.47 feet is a small number for such a large benefit. All the pertinent details of my request are outlined in the package, which I believe you've all received, and I hope have had time to have a look at. If there are any questions I can answer, I would be more than happy to.
Thank you, Mrs. Carroll. Are there questions of the presenter? Mr. Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the presenter. So you're saying that that was a garage at one time?
It was. The original house was a small bungalow. With that was the garage. At some point in time, unbeknownst to me, I have no idea when, the homeowners decided to move everything to the other side of the house and make that into a living space. Consequently, everything is now backwards. The way you normally would go up a step from your garage to is now over there, and I'm over here with my car as it stands now.
Yeah. On the surface, it looks like not much of a stretch to allow someone to enter their house, and although we don't see too much on the side where that garage used to be and now is the entrance, it certainly isn't right close to somebody's house. It would appear that there is, some,
there's a good deal of space between there
yes.
and the other house.
Yes.
It was the original garage and
so
driveway.
there was a driveway at
Oh
some
yes,
point,
it was
yeah.
the original one with the house
Yeah.
until the previous homeowners had made all the renovations.
Sure. And just by I haven't seen such a nice presentation and fully explained with pictures. I'd like to give you everything you want just on that merit. But,
Thank you.
we always have to look at, down the road as to what if we're not here and what does that revert to for somebody moving in. But unless staff can tell me, other than the, okay, through you, Mr. Mayor, to staff. So would she have to go for a minor variance to get this? She's making a request. Is there a way for her to proceed with it, or is it simply a council decision to say, council agrees that this is okay?
Mr. Aquilina.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Bonner, I can only talk about the requirements under the zoning bylaw, and there is no requirements under the zoning bylaw that would apply to the request this evening to have a variance for the width of the driveway because the minimum is in compliance.
Okay, sorry,
No, we don't need a minor variance.
No.
So, through your worship to Councillor Bodnar, I think what the problem is here is that we have a city bylaw that staff doesn't have the authority to overrule. It's more an engineering matter, I think, than a planning matter. My understanding, I haven't asked, and maybe someone would like to ask, but my understanding is that there is no staff objection to this request, but it does need the council stamp of approval. So really it's just council granting an exception to your own rules.
Okay, that's kind of what I wanted to hear, so I'd be happy to make that, but I'd like to hear from, other councillors that may or may not have, a concern with this.
Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to do the same. I've seen the property and actually had a chance to talk to the presenter, and I see no problem there at all. They're going to pay for the curb cut, they're going to put their driveway in, and it's all going to be fine. So I think council should fully support this. It's really nothing extraordinary as far as in my opinion, and I would definitely, as the ward councillor, and I know Councillor Danch is in full support of this as well. So,
thank you. Any other questions? I have perhaps one. What is the
Certainly.
total frontage of your property?
28 meters. 30 meters is the bylaw. The minimum, according to the bylaws that exist since 1981, in my presentation I couldn't help but say I was 37 years old in 1981. I'm not anymore. The minimum for 2 driveways on a residential property is 30 meters. We are 28, which is 6.47 feet.
Thank you. Mr. Aquilina, are there any objections of staff?
Through Mr. Mayor, no, planning is not involved in the matter. It's nothing. It's strictly a bylaw that council has authority to do elsewise under. It's not under the purview of planning. It's more of an engineering requirement.
Madam Clerk, can we dispose of that this evening? Mr. Lee, you ready to point to your little finger there on your red light?
To you, Mr. Mayor, and the rest of council. As CEO Louis had indicated, that staff doesn't have the authority to supersede or override the bylaw. We were just quoting the numbers and the dimensioning as stated in the bylaw. If council wishes to override that, it's their decision. Staff has no objections to it.
Fine. At this stage, can we clear this matter now if someone wants to make a motion? Councilor Kenny? You make a motion that we allow the
yes, I'll make a motion that we
cut.
make an exception to that bylaw for this property.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there a seconder for that motion?
Councillor Danch.
Councilor Danch? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried.
Thank you.
Thank you
If
very
I have
much,
one
Mrs.
question.
Carroll. Yes.
Is there someone at the city that the city knows that I can contact for a curb cut?
I think it'll be Mr. Lee's department. Engineering. Okay. I've been advised by my left hand here that someone will contact you tomorrow.
Wonderful.
With the necessary information.
Thank you very much. I thank everybody here tonight for their time, attention, consideration, and the decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Next would be the mayor's report. I'd like to draw council's attention to the fact that Canal Days is coming. Will be upon us in only 11 days. And we are busy putting the final touches in the city to get things ready to welcome thousands of visitors to one of Ontario's top 100 festivals. Many exciting events are planned with top Canadian music artists joining us. There are a few new restrictions in place this year that I want to remind you and members of the public about. There'll be no parking on the laneways between Sugarloaf Street and Clarence Street, as well as no parking on the east side of Elm, Fielden, and Steele Streets. These restrictions are needed to ensure the safety of everyone during the festival. The boat ramp will be closed all day Friday, August 3rd, and Saturday, August 4th. Special rates for docking at the marina are available so that you and all our boaters can have access to the lake during the day and a great spot to hear the concerts at night. Melissa's Playground at JJ Snow Lakeview Park, which includes the Discovery Pad, will be closed each day, Friday and Saturday, from 4 p.m. to 7 a.m. the next morning. Families will still have access on Saturday from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. before the main concert begins. We want everyone to have a safe weekend, and we thank all our citizens for your patience with these restrictions. Are there any other restrictions that perhaps I should be advising council of? Ms. Hallas? No? Okay, thank you. We had a visit from Minister Catherine McKenna. She's the Federal Minister of the Environment and Climate Change, Canada. Catherine McKenna, as she visited Port Colborne to announce $8.95 million in funding over 4 years for 36 local on-the-ground projects under the Great Lakes Protection Initiative. There were many of our Southern Tier Mayors were present for this announcement. The initiative supports projects across the Great Lakes Basin, which will help restore areas of concern, prevent toxic and nuisance algae, reduce the release of harmful chemicals, engage the public through citizen science, and engage indigenous peoples. While funding wasn't specifically made available to local municipalities, all efforts to clean the Great Lakes are important. Just an aside, the minister was very impressed with the venue being the pavilion at our marina. Trillium Railway. I'd like to extend my appreciation to Trillium Railway for the recent repaving of the crossing on Fielden Avenue. It is a great improvement, and we look forward to them beginning work on the Colorado Street crossings. That's necessary too, but we won't let them off the hook, but we certainly enjoy what they did at Fielden Avenue. I was today interviewed by Cub reporters from the summer program at the library, and joining me were Councillor Desmarais and CAO Louis. And these young individuals made some very pointed questions to myself and Mr. Louis and Councillor Desmarais, and it shows you the good work that is going on at the library with these were for sort of older students, and they were a great little group, and perhaps one of the wisest that we've seen in this room from individuals of that nature. I'd also like to point out that CEO Louis and myself participated in the roundtable with, again, Southern Tier mayors, and this was with our parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Industry and Economic Development, David Lametti. David is a former resident of Port Colborne, now an MP from Montreal, but he is well positioned to help our community and other communities in the Niagara region with programs, and we'll be looking forward to working with him in the years to come. In any event, are there any questions of me on this report? Yes, Madam Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not in your report, but as a question outside of that report, but has to do with you. I had read that somewhere, not always the best source of information on Facebook, but that the Auditor General will be bringing the report to the MPCA this coming week. Is that correct?
I've heard similar rumors, but until they're received, I will not.
You don't know yet?
I don't know. I haven't been advised until it's actually arrived.
Okay, so
and I'll make sure that you get a copy.
Thank you. That'd be great.
Okay, and all members of staff all members of council would like a copy.
Thank you, sir.
And Mr. Barrick is not with us this evening, so we don't have a regional report. Are there any councillors' items or issues that they wish to bring forward at this time? Mr. Danch?
I just want to bring us up for the third time. What's that magical one? There we go. I'm new. I've been 6 weeks now waiting for to get a left-hand turn painted on Elm Street. I've asked you guys 3 times. I noticed the region trucks in Welland on Monday last week. They must have put 15 left-hand turn signals on the road, and we can't get 2. I just wondered, how long do we wait, and how many more people are we going to cut off at the corner?
Mr. Lee, do you have a response?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Danch. You've asked us 3 times, that's correct, and we've asked the region 3 times 3. We will continue to do that. There's a note of optimism, at least they're in Welland and working their way this way.
Can I get a contact? Because I'll do it myself. Because I want to make sure they understand just how adamant I am about people are getting cut off, like steady. Please send that to me.
Mr. Mayor, I can assure you I will speak with the individual responsible for that, Mr. Tripp, and I'll hopefully have an answer for you next council meeting.
Sooner than later,
And-
6 weeks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Kenny, I can see the sparkle in your eye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ditto to Councillor Danch. Actually, my husband said he was going to go paint them. He said, I'll just go and paint them big. Yeah, he has the paint, right? He has the paint, but he said he was tired of that same thing. And then again, Mr. Mayor, what you brought up, Chris, give me a date. My time on this council is slowly waning, and I want Kalali Street completed.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Kenny, I would love to give you a specific date. We've had actually conversations just this week, twice with Trillium, and then also multiple discussions with the region. We're pushing the envelope as much as we can from our side.
Push harder, Chris. Push harder. Thank you.
Again, it's certainly frustrating for our staff who don't have responsibility for the works that we often request. So all we can do is at the mercy of the region. However, if the region doesn't comply within a reasonable period of time, that's what myself and Mr. Barrick are for. We'll go, I wouldn't say rattle their cage, but that's enough. Thank you. Councillor Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm actually going to be asking about something I brought forward in the past as well, and that is what the efforts to get more effective policing have come to. I've had a couple of calls this week from people, actually 3 different people from 3 different areas of the city, complaining about problems within the parks. And I actually shared one today. Was on my niece actually posted on Facebook, and I shared it with all of council. She was harassed in a park with her young daughter, and it was pot smoking was going on, and her daughter was being affected by it. She was quite upset by that, and she got harassed by the people she asked to leave. So that was a problem. Another young woman actually called MP Badaway's office, and it ended up being referred to me about a problem in an area in the East Village. Again, drug problems with drug paraphernalia left around. She has 3 special needs children. And it's very difficult when she's got them in a park to know what everyone's picking up at one time. So she brings them to the park, and now she has to have friends come with her because the parks have so much stuff in them that it just are not healthy for kids to be picking up. She's phoned the police said that's not their job to pick them up. And we got a very different answer when we talked to the police several months back. So somebody has to be taking control of this because there is a lot of drug paraphernalia laying around the streets. Someone needs to be responsible for picking them up, and I know right now there are some very dangerous drugs out there that really tell us that no one should be picking them up unless you're really trained in how to do that. So we need to find out who's responsible and get that contact out to people so that they understand who they need to call to come and pick this up. That's another one of them. The third incident was, again, a young mother with children. She got into a bit of a verbal scuffle with a local drug dealer and told him that his activities were causing a problem for her family. Next thing you know, there was sugar put in their gas tank, so rendering their vehicle unusable. This is the kind of thing that's happening, so we're seeing some retaliatory things going on. So really, again, effective policing, we need it, and we need it desperately. So I would ask, first of all, where we're at with it, and because these incidents keep going, and they seem to be escalating, what more can we do? So I will leave that with you, Mr. Louie, and you, Mr. Mayor.
Do you have a comment, Mr. Louie?
Sure. Through your worship to Councillor Demery, I know that you've had this issue at the past couple of council meetings. I was able to speak the very next day, 2 meetings ago, to the staff sergeant at the Port Colborne detachment, and I guess he understands. We're trying to pin down, it's a big city, and they cover beyond just the city. They cover all the way to Fort Erie from the Haldeman border, the Dunnville border. I am trying to get him out to a council meeting. We haven't pinned down a date yet that he can come out to a council meeting to hear these concerns directly from council. I know there's everything from drugs, criminal activity, traffic moving violations, and so on. The one thing, and he has committed to come, it's just a matter of pinning down a date. He understands. I don't want to answer for him, but he understands these issues. I think he would probably suggest that his resources are taxed too. The one thing that I will tell all members of council and any staff or residents that watch the council meetings is to absolutely report everything, even if it's an incident that is already, I guess, in a person's opinion, over. That should be reported. The gas tank incident, for example, people in the park, even if they've left the park already, report those incidents, because the regional police do keep statistics, and the statistics gets them their resources in terms of how many officers they can get on the street and the budget that they get for their operations locally. And we want that budget to be in Port Colborne, because that's where the need is that we've so clearly seen. So absolutely report any kind of activities to the local police detachment. And I will see about getting or Staff Sergeant LaPlante out to one of our future meetings.
Yeah, I do thank you for that, through you, Mr. Mayor. I do thank you for that, but we have been down this road before, and we've had the Police Services Board actually meet in these chambers, and we've expressed many of these same things to them before, and I really am getting a little tired of the merry-go-round, because we keep coming back to the same place, that we have to prove that the need is there in this city before they will allocate resources. Come on. They know. They know. They get the calls. They do know. So, you know, I just, sometimes I think that we're being shoved aside and our needs aren't being seen as real as they are. The other thing, though, that maybe we should be helping ourselves a little bit more, there certainly are regional resources to talk about smoking in the parks, correct? We could bring those down. Smoking drugs is not different than smoking cigarettes. You don't smoke in the parks. So we could certainly bring those down and help that way. That would be a good thing. We have our own park staff. We have our own city staff. They could be put on alert to start reporting what they're seeing. They see it as well. That would help provide these statistics that are needed to get us proper policing. But the other thing that they can do right now, the police can do right now, that will make a huge difference, and we've seen it have an effect before, is get out of their cars. Get themselves out of their cars, walk that beat, ride bicycles, do what you need to do, but be visible and be in true contact with the people on the street. And when you're out of your car walking, you do see the drug paraphernalia on the ground. When you're driving by, you don't see it. Makes a difference. Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Demery. Perhaps you and I can put our heads together and we'll draft a letter to the police board.
I would be happy to.
Carbon copying our staff sergeant as well.
Okay, and I will be bringing all of these to the stakeholder meeting at the Niagara Regional Police Services on the 31st. But I just believe that we should have a formal stand from this city.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Louie, we ran around the issue of who is responsible to pick up needles that may be found in our city parks. The police say it's not their responsibility. Who is responsible?
So I know the answer to this, but it kind of escapes me right now. I can say, I'm going to ask Nicole to jump in if she knows the answer, or Director Ashley. We've sort of been trying to navigate a tricky issue here, because we're talking about containers where people can dispose of sharps for the safety of other users of the park. The slippery slope is, do you end up attracting unsavory uses in your park? We want it to, on the one hand, we don't want to say this is a place that you should use drugs, but on the other hand, it's happening anyway, and the paraphernalia is left behind, and that's to the detriment of the safety of all residents. I know that our city health and safety officer has been involved in getting staff trained to dispose of that, but I'm not sure if there's a police role in collecting abandoned sharps. So I'm not sure.
Yes, McGregor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to speak to a couple items, and then I'm going to refer to Nicole to speak to the specific one. But the first thing I'd like to inform Council of is that staff in the Parks and Recreation Division has continual communication with the NRP. In fact, our latest meeting with them, we had discussions about increased police presence in the Health and Wellness Center, meaning getting out of the cruiser and actually walking around in the Health and Wellness Center, because we've been experiencing some challenges there. But the discussion also included talk about safety in our parks and on our trails, as well as prohibited uses on our trails too. So we do have ongoing communication in that respect. In addition, we've also installed 12 sharps containers as well recently. So in light of the information that we've been getting, such as Angie Demery or Councillor Demery has mentioned to us. So, and on the piece about reporting the sharps, I'm going to refer to Nicole.
Mr. Lass?
Thank you. So in terms of reporting sharps, the stance that we've taken, if it is found within city property, to contact our Parks Department, and we will send staff to then go and dispose of the sharps.
Your sharps containers, are they all in municipal parks or they're elsewhere?
Currently, the sharp containers are in our buildings, not within the parks themselves. As many as in the Harbor Master building, Valet, the museum, the library has some now. Here in City Hall, I think we've put some in. We've been working with Italia, with health and safety, to place them into different locations, particularly where we've seen them on a regular basis. Again, when we're finding them outside and in the parks, it's very difficult to put these containers all throughout the city. So we're trying to mitigate with where we're finding them within our facilities, and then asking the people to contact us so our staff can dispose of them safely.
And the individuals designated to pick up the sharps in the parks or wherever, they have received the proper training on how this is to be done?
Correct, yes.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from members of council on this issue? Yes, Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Ashley or Nicole, whichever. So are these containers not suitable to put into parks? Is that you're not suitable for that? Are there ones that you could find that would be suitable? Because it just seems like if what Councillor Desmarais is saying is like these things are being found in the parks. That means they're there. So I'm just wondering, is there another type that could be acquired that could go in some appropriate parks?
To my knowledge, I'm not aware of any, but we certainly could do the research within the department to determine that. As far as I know, a sharps container, essentially it comes on a wall, we place it there. Once it becomes full, we have an agreement with the region to then to take those sharps and empty those containers out. Within our parks truck itself, we actually carry a portable sharps container, which we then deposit the needles that are found throughout. But I can certainly look to see if there's something that would be more durable in a parks type setting, as vandalism tends to be something high within. Yeah. So I would like to ensure that that's a secure container.
That's what it looks like. It's like a mailbox.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
It's okay, we'll take a look at it.
Any other questions of members of council on this or any other issue? There being none, thank you. Mr. Louie, talking about staff responses to previous councilor inquiries, do you have a comment?
I do. Through your worship to council, specifically Councillor Desmarais, I did have a chance to speak to the Ministry of Environment local office in St. Catharines after the last council meeting. Now, the letter from the mayor has gone out as per council's direction at the last meeting to the Minister of the Environment. Ministry staff did reach out to me unsolicited and said that the reason that it's been difficult for them to set up that meeting that was requested by Valet and city staff is because of the changeover in government. They need to brief the new minister on the CBRA issue. It is not the only issue that the minister needs to be briefed on, so they're sort of in a queue waiting to get in front of the minister, but they do have their eyes set on a September meeting with Valet, not with the minister, like hopefully earlier than that with the minister and in September, and we'll see if we get any reaction from the mayor's letter that was sent at the direction of council last week.
Thank you, Mr. Louie. Chief, we had some very good commentary in the paper about the fines of the owners of the property on Nickel Street where there was a loss of life. Congratulations to you and your department for preparing the case, and which led to this very severe resolution, the highest penalty which can be dealt with. Do you have any other comments, Chief?
I appreciate that, Your Worship. I was going to speak to it as briefly as I could. Obviously, we are somewhat pleased with regards to the fines themselves. Obviously, the issue in our hearts certainly doesn't change things. It hasn't changed at all. I will say that we have been asked about the fines themselves. So I'm going to try to bring a little bit of clarity to that if I could in this format. Only in the sense that, yes, there was a fine levied of $100,000, $50,000 in each count. But as I understand it right now, and nobody's corrected me on this, is that out of that $100,000, the region of Niagara gets $50,000 of it. The other $50,000 is split between the 12 municipalities based on a per capita basis. So I really don't know what our share would be on an annual basis. Peter might have that, although I didn't prep him for this tonight. I really don't know what that number would be over the long haul. Some money does come back to us. This particular case is a little bit troubling to me simply because the region's prosecutor refused to take the case because they felt there was a potential for an appeal. They will not recognize, or they will not act on our behalf or any other municipality if they believe the case could be appealed. That meant we had to use our city solicitor to bring this case to court. So there's a substantial cost that we've yet to be notified of for this case, the preparation of this case. I'm going to suggest it's going to be several thousands of dollars. I will say that our lawyer did a tremendous job. She handled herself really well in court. There were some issues that came about in court that were somewhat unexpected. She was able to deal with them relatively quickly. The other thing I will say is the judge made some very helpful suggestions to us and our role in this whole incident. I'm asking for that document from the court because there were some words that I'd like to use for our purposes in the future. Obviously, we can't bring back the people that have lost their lives, but I will say that there's a clear message sent here that you better have working smoke and carbon monoxide alarms in your homes. And we'd like to think that this will never happen again, although I'm being quite honest with you, the fire deaths in the province of Ontario are substantially higher than what they were last year. And I just don't know where this is going to end. But the reality of the situation is, I think there should be a clear message sent in our city as to what the outcomes of this could amount to with regards to either a loss of life in your own home plus your property, and or if we catch you, you're going to charge you and we'll see you in court and see what happens. So I'd like to think that there is some way in which this whole unfortunate incident will help our community as a whole. One other thing I would like to add, if I could, Your Worship, while I do have the microphone at the time. We've had some very difficult times with our phones over this last month and a half to 2 months. We're finding that a number of people in the community are trying to get a hold of us, and it just rings and rings and rings and rings, and they aren't getting through. So we're kind of finding out about it after the fact. Somebody will phone somebody else and complain, then they get a hold of us, and or they phone City Hall. So we've been advertising that if you need to get a hold of the fire department until this is fixed, contact City Hall. They'll put you through to us. Our IT people have been working diligently with, it turns out it's a Bell problem. Bell has suggested to us on Friday that the problem is within the phone line, and their recommendation is we change our phone number. Well, we told them that's not going to happen because everything we have is based on the 834-4512. So they're coming tomorrow, I believe, tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow morning sometime between 8 and 4, because they won't give you a fixed time. And they're going to meet with our people, including our IT people, with the hope that we can get this corrected. But right now, if you can't get a hold of us, call City Hall, and City Hall will put you through to the fire hall. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any questions to Chief Cartwright for the commentary? Yes, Councillor Waters.
Thank you. Through you to, well, I guess the chief. So the 50 grand that goes to the region, and that supposedly, is that like to pay for their prosecutor who never prosecuted the case?
Your Worship, the Councillor Butters. So, as I understand it, the buildings that they hold the cases in are funded at least partially by the region, and if not the province, by the region. I will tell you that as of the last couple of years, whenever they do handle a case for us, they bill us. We've paid, and you'll see in our accounts payable, our legal costs are substantially higher than they ever have been. And unfortunately, because every time we charge somebody, we end up in court, and obviously there's a process that has to take place, which sometimes takes a number of court appearances. which is tying up our staff's time, plus every time the regional prosecutor is there, we pay for that. So those bills are continuing to come in. So the answer to the short answer to your question is I understand it right now, 50% of all fines go to the region of Niagara to offset their cost. I'm assuming that doesn't include the prosecutor because we are billed separately for that time.
Wow. Is there any chance we can send them our bill for our lawyer?
Your Worship, it's funny you say that because that was one of the threats I made, but I don't think we'd get very far with that. We could certainly try it if that was a direction of council. I'd be more than happy to hand deliver it, but I don't know that we'd be we'd get much satisfaction out of it other than my own from delivering it.
So 50% goes to the region. The other 50% is divided amongst the 12 communities within the region?
Yes. That's my understanding, Your Worship. My understanding is it's distributed on a per capita basis. Peter may have more background on this than I do, but I believe it's something that was done a number of years ago. I don't know if it's time to revisit it or what, but the reality is, my understanding is it's based on a per capita basis between the 12 municipalities, and I have no idea what our amount may be. Maybe Peter can help with that.
So we pay our own lawyer, we get the decision, and we have to share, I wouldn't say profits, we have to share not even enough to cover our costs. It doesn't make sense to me that it is time to revisit. Mr. Sanez, do you have a comment?
Through Mr. Mayor, just that, yeah, that falls under, I believe, what Chief is talking about is the Provincial Offences Act and how it's distributed through all the fines and collections that they provide, that the region provides, and yes, they keep basically 50%, and the rest is allocated to the 12 municipalities, and our share, I believe, is probably about 4%.
Thank you, Mr. Sanez. Yes, Mrs. Butters.
Well, perhaps a letter from your office, sir, asking for that money back would be in order. Because we're putting the bill here, and that's fine, and getting that conviction, that's great. But why?
I don't think anyone here disagrees with you, Mr. Butters.
So why don't we send
that
a
was
letter
the reason
to them
for the question.
Asking for the grant back. Make it a request for them grant it back to us.
Well, I would certainly like them to cover our costs, namely the cost of legal fees.
That would be great.
Okay.
I think that'd be wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions of Chief Cartwright or anyone else? Mr. Aquilina?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not on the subject of what we just discussed, but it was just a follow-up on the last council meeting, the discussion regarding the signage down at Pleasant Beach, informing to bring your dogs on the beach. That now has been removed.
Thank you for that update. Okay, any other questions? We're not. We'll move on to consideration of items requiring separate discussion. Mr. Dench, you pulled number 1.
Thank you, and I guess I'm going to go to Dan here on this one.
Can you move the recommendation first?
Yeah, I'd like to move the recommendation.
Can you just read out the item in dark print?
Planning and Development Department, Planning Division, Report 2018-105, Subject Recommendation Report for Official Plan Amendment D090118 and Zoning Bylaw Amendment D140218, North Side, Clally Street West.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation, Councillor Kenny? Mr. Dent, you have the floor.
Yeah, just I remember a couple weeks ago we were talking about this. I see Michael's in the audience there. Just looking at this and you say, like, you know, an acceptable design and stuff like that. Like, if we've got no design in front of us that we can look at, how do we know this is something that's acceptable? I mean, and I'm not to coin the other guy down the highway there, but, you know, Buddy's got that place down on the 140, and, you know, it's a rectangular building with a whack of doors on it, and that's Storage Wars, right? I just wonder what we're going to put up here. I mean, we got a residential area. I know you're zoning it highway commercial, but there's an awful lot of residential right there, and I just wondered, before we say yes, go ahead, what's this place going to look like? Like, do we have a conceptual drawing or anything like that we can have a peek at?
Mr. Aquilina?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Danch, that was the initial comment that I had made prior to the application being submitted that my expectation is to have an aesthetically pleasing storage unit or storage units. So until we actually see a design of the building, I know that conceptually one was provided. I cannot comment until I actually see the design as part of the site plan application.
So are we gonna sit on the fence on this one and wait till we get a design? Because, you know, you want us to support this. I mean, if we don't know what we're looking at.
Through Mr. Mayor, the expectation is to have a building that sits there, aesthetically pleasing, and the site plan will not be approved unless that was the case.
So we'd have the opportunity at that time to look at the proposed building?
The application would need to be submitted. The direction from council is that the site plan drawings and application or agreement is delegated approval to myself. If council wants to actually see the drawings, then I'm certainly able to do that under council's direction.
Just because of where it is and the possibility down the road of some, you know, some newer construction there and that, I mean, you'd like to see something decent across the road. I know you know, it's residential right up to that point. We've got one residential after that, and you got a Field of Dreams, so it'd be nice to see something decent put in that field. It's my only concern.
As I understand it, we won't necessarily have storage doors like you're suggesting, for which each individual unit would have a separate door. As I understand it, there's one central door, and the individual units are inside. So we're not going to see the doors for each individual unit. That's my understanding.
Right now, we
correct,
can't.
Mr. Aquilina?
I want to see if Michael wants to take the podium. He's the applicant, he's the agent.
Would you come forward, Michael? And again, push the little red button. You've heard the comments from Mr. Danch?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. The building design is incorporated into there's going to be 3 loading areas around the building. There are not individual doors to access each unit from the exterior of the building. You will load into a loading area and take it through a corridor through within the building to the individual unit. So there are only 3 loading zones around the perimeter of the building. The front of the building will have a manufactured stone skirt on the front and some metal cladding. We're going to use 2 different types of metal cladding so that it doesn't look like just one big flat wall. We did provide a drawing to the city just to give you an idea, but we haven't finalized it. But again, through the site plan, we're okay if one of the conditions is that Dan provides it to you for your review. I'm okay with that.
Mr. Danch, any further questions?
And just because I got some guidance from my left here, I think what we like from you, Dan, is to see that site plan request before we say yes to this, and, you know, have the opportunity to voice an opinion at that time.
Comment, Mr. Aquilina?
Hey, Mr. Mayor, my understanding is once the site plan application does get formally submitted, that council would like to see the drawings. And I will do so by way of a report.
But I think Mr. Danch is looking to see these before we pass this recommendation. Is that correct, Mr.?
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, I mean, it just be before I say yes to something I can't see, I would like to see it. I mean, like I said, it's a residential area, and it's, yeah, like we just would like some control of what they're putting in there, I guess.
I think the suggestion is the possibility of amending the recommendation to include council approval of the site plan.
That's a great way of saying it, then I'll.
You so move?
Yes, please.
Is that a friendly amendment? Mrs. Kenny? We have perhaps we should have a vote on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment? To include the site plan, yes. Opposed? There be none. It's carried. The amendment is. Mr. Elliott, you had a question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to the presenter. So if everything will be self-contained inside the buildings?
Correct.
There will be no outside storage at all?
That's correct.
One question I have then. will that reduce the amount of outdoor lighting that you will need, so the cast off to the neighbors won't be as prevalent? If you're only going to have 3 entry doors, those will be pretty much the only illuminated things you'll have.
Yes, we obviously want to keep our expenses down and not use as much energy, so only over those areas, yes.
So it won't be like some of the other self-contained places where access is to every
Roads
unit,
of lights,
and
no.
they have outdoor storage as well, so they've got it lit up like the 4th of July all the time.
Correct.
Because you don't
Will
want
not
anybody
be
stealing
like that.
anything. Okay,
That's right.
perfect. That's perfect. Thanks.
Any further questions? There being none, can I call for a motion to accept the recommendation as amended? Moved by Councillor Desmarais. Oh, we have a question, another question? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Mr. Elliott, was that a yes or a no? Were you in favor or against? I saw that pinky moving, but
I'm on the fence. The only thing is, I would approve what he wants, because we still have control through site plan. So what you're doing is you're approving in principle what's going to be built. You still hold the reins because you've got to submit site plan to us, and we're not going to let you build what's approved until site plan gets passed. So to roll it all into one that you can't start design and stuff, you got to submit and all that. It's kind of semantics, but yes, we're going to approve what you want to build. It's just a matter of getting the site plan approved, and there's times that I have an issue with that because it can't drag it on.
so the recommendation as amended has been approved.
Yeah, and that's the only issue that I have, is that sometimes that drags things on a little bit longer. So that's just my opinion.
Okay. Thank you very much for your comments. Second item is item number 2, and that's Mr. Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Engineering and Operations Department, Engineering Division's Report 2018-103, subject Wignall, Mitchener, Port Colborne, and Beaver Dam Municipal Drain Engineer Appointment.
Seconder for the recommendation, Councillor Butters. Discussion? Mr. Bodner.
Thank you, Mayor. Through to Chris, I guess, on this one. Chris, it's good to see that this is moving ahead after some stumbles, not our fault, just engineers coming and going. I just pulled this basically to let the people that drain into these watersheds to, to be appraised that we are moving ahead with it. Any idea, if we pass this tonight, what's your estimate of when we can, see boots on the ground and somebody getting at this?
Through Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bodner. The estimate right now from the current engineer that we're recommending that we hire, he's hoping to have a report to the public for review before the end of the year.
Thank you, Chris. That's a reasonable request, I think, when we've seen drainage reports take a long time. So I'm excited that it will be that short a time. In that report, just because we had been dealing with some flooding issues kind of caused by us in one event, will we be looking at those properties and somewhat drains and swales that now go in, but they have no real, they're not municipal drains? Will that be kind of part of it to say, let the people know, if you want this to become a municipal drain, here's what'll happen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bodner. Yes, that's exactly correct. As a matter of fact, we've actually jumped the gun a bit on that, and we've actually had the engineer on site looking at some of those locations already.
So just further to that, so the people will still have a say if they want that to become a municipal drain? Because there are some, there's some really good things about it, but there are a little bit of downside where they will have to pay, some money to get better drainage. So will we be dictating that it will be, or will they, will we have a meeting and see, do they have a say in it, basically? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bodner. Yes, they'll definitely have a say. It's part of the drainage process. The report will make recommendations, and then once that once that report comes out, there'll be public meetings and consultation, and then the results of that will end up finalizing the report.
Thank you, Mr. Bodner. Any further commentary on the recommendation? There be none, I call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. That would conclude all the items for discussion. Are there any notices of motion this evening? There be none, I'd call for an adjournment of this meeting. Motion, Mr. Danch, seconded by Mr. Elliott. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. This meeting is adjourned. Now, moving on to the regular meeting of Council 18-18, today, Monday, July 23rd, following the Committee of the Whole meeting. Call that meeting to order. Are there any addendum items, Madam Clerk?
No, there are no addendum items this evening.
I entertain a motion to confirm the agenda. Moved by Councillor Bodner, seconded by Councillor Desmarais. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Are there any disclosures of interest this evening? There being none indicated, Madam Clerk, we'll note that. I call for adoption of minutes, the special meeting of Council 16-18 held on July 9th, 2018, and the regular meeting of Council 17-18 held on July 9th, 2018 as well. Moved by Councillor Bodner, seconded by Councillor Danch. Any discussion? There be none. Call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? The matter is carried. Move on to determination of items requiring separate discussion. There being none, call for approval of items not requiring separate discussion. Moved by Councillor Danch, seconded by Councillor Butters. All those in favor? Opposed? Could I say in favor again, please? Opposed? It's carried. Proclamations, Madam Clerk, could you read out the proclamation? Lighthouse Day, August 7th.
Yep, there's one proclamation tonight. It's the Lighthouse Day on August 7th, 2018.
All those in favor of the proclamation? Moved by Councillor Butters, seconded by Councillor Elliott. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Minutes of boards, commissions, and committees. We have the minutes of the Port Colborne Public Library Board meeting June 5th, 2018. Do we have a mover for that set of minutes? Moved by Councillor Desmarais, seconded by Councillor Butters. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Are there any bylaws for consideration, Madam Clerk?
Yes, there are 4 bylaws. 6600-55-18, being a bylaw to adopt amendment number 5 to the official plan for the City of Port Colborne. 6601-56-18, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 6575-30-18, respecting lands legally described as Part Lot 32, Concession 2, municipally known as Kalali Street West. 6602-57-18, being a bylaw to appoint Paul Marsh P. Engineering of EWA Engineers Incorporated for the completion of a new engineer's report for the repair and the improvements of the Wignall, Mishner, Port Colborne, and Beaver Dam drains situated in the City of Port Colborne, and to rescind bylaw number 5653-84-11 and bylaw number 5666-97-11. And lastly, 6603-58-18, being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne at its regular meeting on July 23rd, 2018.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll deal with those bylaws in bulk. Is there any further discussion? Being none, call for the question. All those in favor of supporting those bylaws? Oh, well, all right. I think that's a good idea. Moved by Councillor Butters, seconded by Councillor Kenny. Now we can call for the vote. All those in favor? You're too anxious to complete this meeting. Okay. We have another motion that council move into closed session to address the following matters. A, minutes of the closed session portion of the following council meeting, July 9th, 2019. B, Planning and Development Department Planning Division Report 2018-102 concerning the potential sale of city-owned land pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 2392C, a proposal or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. C, Corporate Services Department Clerk and Division Report 2018-104, subject to appointments to boards and committees pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 2392B, personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Item D, Planning and Development Department Bylaw Enforcement Division Report 2018-106 concerning an update with respect to ongoing property investigations pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 2392B, personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and subsection 2392E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Finally, E, a verbal report from the Chief Administrative Officer concerning a human resources matter pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 2392B, personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. A mover and a seconder for that motion. Moved by Councillor Dant, seconded by Councillor Kenny. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Can we adjourn to the ante room, please?